Welcome back, everybody. Can you screen share, Kim?
Yes, and I was all ready to go. Sorry. Here we go. And I have it that we're on page 126.
Okay.
Here.
Start of chapter 7. Okay. Understood. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So it's I think Anne, Donna, Ed, Kim, Milan, and me, right? That seem right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay. All right. Chapter 7, Great Vow. A pilgrimage. Every true pilgrimage involves an ordeal, some grueling effort that tests your sincerity and dedication. A month before I was to leave for Great Vow, my faithful red Jeep was totaled. Luckily, I was not hurt, but I had to go through the hassles of dealing with insurance and quickly buying a new car before I could leave. And so I bought a Honda CR-V with all-wheel drive, a feature unnecessary in Austin, Texas, that proved to be life-saving on the journey.
It's Donna. I think you're muted, Donna.
Sometimes she has trouble with her computer, so
Oh, do we want to go to?
maybe Ed, maybe
Okay.
maybe she'll rejoin.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. It was the first week of January 2005. Ben had flown to Austin to accompany me, and it was delightful to spend time chatting with him on the drive right up to the mountains. There we suddenly found ourselves on steep, treacherously winding roads in a whiteout blizzard. We crept along, unable to see anything. The edge of the road, a bend, a curve, a tree. We were grateful to follow an occasional tail light for a while. But I dreaded the prospect of a big truck sliding into us from behind, out of control. We were told that from one point, chains would be required, and not surprisingly, we found a little place nearby that sold them. Returning into the blinding snow and wind, we struggled on the, and now I lost myself,
Side.
okay, side of the road to install the chains while huge semis brushed by inches away. I began to deeply regret bringing Ben and exposing him to this existential threat.
And should we read the Dogen quote?
Yeah.
Where is the Dogen quote? Here we go.
think
Why
that's-
leave behind the seat that exists in your home and go aimlessly off to the dusty realms of other lands? If you make one misstep, you go astray from the way directly before you. You have gained the pivotal opportunity of human form. Do not use your time in vain. You are maintaining the essential working of the Buddha way.
I think he means that metaphorically also.
Really, I find that a strange saying from the man that left his home to go sailing across the sea.
Well, you have to go further on into that section because he talks about why. Yeah. Okay. I think Milan, maybe? No, Kim.
No, Kim. It was growing dark, and I looked for any sign of lodging, but there was nothing. I'm laughing because I was there. But we were at one place where we were the last car that wasn't allowed to go up the hill or something. So we had to turn back around and
Ah.
go, which was probably fortunate. It was growing dark, but I looked for any sign of lodging, but there was nothing. So we continued creeping forward inch by inch, the chains clanking under us. We didn't speak. We had long ago turned off the music, and now we stared forward into the dust beyond our headlights, thick with snowflakes, and focused our will on staying on the road. I was terrified that a slip would mean a deadly plunge down a cliff, or at best a fall wedging us into the trees below. Was this a metaphor for my whole spiritual quest or its tragic end? Finally, in darkness, we began to descend, and the wind and snow slowly eased as we merged out onto the plain below, untouched by snow. It was like arriving on another friendlier planet. We were exhausted, relieved, and exuberant. We stopped to remove the chains and looked for a place to spend the night. And the next morning, we ate a quick breakfast and headed out. We had not gone far when we saw, looming ominously on the horizon, another mountain range, and soon enough found ourselves once again on a steep, winding mountain road in the midst of a blizzard, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every true pilgrimage is an arduous journey that tests your mental, physical, and spiritual capacities to the limit. Monasteries in ancient times were situated in mountains difficult to get to and mostly closed off from the rest of the world. Still, I'm not sure I would make that drive in January if I had to do it again. Yeah, we were in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know.
Okay.
The arrival.
Well,
When we
you
find,
want to
sorry.
read, you want to read the little poem that's on the other page?
It's the dream. It's the dream we carry in secret, that something miraculous will happen, that it must happen, that time will open, that the heart will open, that doors will open, that the rock face will open, that springs will gush, that the dream will open, that one morning we will glide into some little harbor we didn't know was there. Aloud, hush.
I love hearing it in your accent, Milan. The arrival. When we finally arrived at Great Vow, it felt epic. We were warmly welcomed, fed, and put up in the guest dorms. And the next day, I was relieved to take Ben to the airport and so grateful to have had his company. I was shown the cubicle that would be my home for the next 6 months, partitioned by curtains on 3 sides, with room only for a bed and a chest of drawers. My robes were hung on the partition. The fourth side was open, so there was no privacy, but at least I was in a woman's dorm, and it was cold, brutally cold. The furnace had broken, and so it was the same temperature inside as outside, 20 degrees. Eventually, the furnace was fixed, but not until I was leaving in July. Chosen heaped quilts on me that first night and brought a hot water bottle. He told me wake-up bells were at 3:50, and by 4:20 we were to be in the Zendo. And so my Zen training at Great Vow began.
Great Vow is situated 6 miles from the nearest tiny town. That's Annie, Oregon, near the border with Washington State. It sits on about 20 acres surrounded by forests. The building had been an elementary school, abandoned when the district consolidated, so it was purchased on very favorable terms a couple of years before I arrived. It seemed perfect for a monastery. The architecture is a low brick complex from a progressive era in the 60s. Classrooms were arranged in clusters of 4 around a kind of central open arena space for gatherings or performances.
Ed, I'm taking Donna can't unmute.
Okay.
Ah,
Oh, here it's Donna. Yay.
Hello.
hi.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Where am I? Each classroom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Each classroom had been adapted by the monastery for a particular use: women's dorm, men's dorm, abbot's quarters, guest dorms, library. There was a gym, a large space, the former library, I guessed, that had been tuned into a Zendo and a huge cafeteria that gave space for a workshop and a residence lounge and a dining hall next to a vast commercial grade kitchen with a separate dish room and enormous walk-in refrigerators and freezers. Huge windows open out onto the lush hillsides and forests beyond. There were dozens of showers, bathrooms, and toilets, locker rooms, and a gym, a large organic garden,
Offices.
offices, and smaller meeting spaces for classes. The music room is tiled with
No,
filled with
That's okay.
members for the monastery's, I can't see that,
Marimba.
Mamba orchestra.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Sorry. Wait.
Ready?
Yeah, but we're into this paragraph.
Right at the
Okay.
bottom, yeah, right there, the last paragraph.
Okay.
Okay. Tucked into the forest were walking paths and a Jiso garden and a tiny wood hermitage. The main building was already handicapped accessible, fire alarmed, and fitted with a sprinkler system from its days as a public school. And yet it was intimate. I estimated that at most about 220 children had been enrolled there. When Chozen and Hogan arrived, the school had been abandoned for 3 years, but they had found their colorful bulletin boards, blackboards filled with lessons, textbooks open on desk, and pencils and paper strewn everywhere, as though the teachers and children had simply stood up in the middle of the school day and walked out. But the cold was bone cracking, especially for someone who had spent the past 10 years in Austin, Texas. It was a damp cold and it penetrated to the bone. You don't get used to such cold. It's just that your brain gets tired of talking about it and stops even commenting on it.
Him?
I wonder if we should go back and read some of this. We take refuge in Buddha before all being, immersing body and mind deeply in the way. We take refuge in Dharma before all being, entering deeply the merciful ocean of Buddha's way. We take refuge in Sangha before all being, bringing harmony to everyone, free from hindrance. And so
Right under the quote there.
we wore full robes for morning service and evening zazen and changed.
You're too far along. I was still wearing a sweater.
Up above.
Go back a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. I was still wearing a sweater, that part.
Oh, right. I was still wearing a sweater on the 3rd of July, the day before I left Great Vow. It took me until September in the August heat to thaw completely when I returned. Chosen cheerfully told stories of her sessions with Harada Roshi when ice covered the floors and they were barefoot in the zendo to encourage us. And we all just stared at her balefully. Every morning they announced optional outdoor meditation, which completely baffled me. All of the residents immediately filed out while I huddled in the zendo, where the windows were generally wide open anyway. Finally, I asked one of my friends, "Why do you go out in the cold for optional outdoor meditation?" She looked at me with pity, because we get to put on a coat.
Obviously, the best place to be was in the kitchen, helping with the cooking. And I spent as much time there as I could, making great vats of yogurt, hearty soups, and steaming hot oatmeal, and generally assisting the senso, head of the kitchen.
You go ahead, read that next part.
Okay, because we residents were no guests, we were staff. On the right, you can see the schedule we follow when we were not in session.
Living at Great Vow. At Great Vow, I discovered I was the oldest resident by far, except for the abbots. I was the same age as Chosen and Hogan, while most of the residents were in their 20s. There were generally about 18 residents. Hogan explained that most of them had come because they weren't going to college or into the military, and yet they needed to sort themselves out to get a start in life. He said at the monastery they could get life skills, organic gardening, cleaning, cooking, sewing, working in an office, and so on. They learned self-regulation following the monastery's schedule, and they were learning how to offer hospitality for the monastery's frequent guests. Once a week, Chosen and Hogan taught a class on psychological development, and the church residents had regular sanzen, their term for Gokusan, a practice discussion with a teacher, with them. Residents also learned to play the marimba in Great Vow's marimba orchestra. This required not only intense mindfulness, hitting the right keys at the right time, but careful attunement to the music and to each other. It was really fun, and the infectious music is joyful. In the Klatskanai 4th of July parade, the marimba orchestra would perform on a float.
We wore full robes for morning service and evening zazen, and changed for work into samu, the Japanese work clothes traditionally worn by monks in Japanese Zen monasteries. We didn't have closets, just a small dresser, so I hung my robes on the partition of my cubicle. Our simplified wardrobe didn't require much space. There's a sense of relief in living so simply and so close to nature. I think part of that relief for me was dropping competing sets of responsibilities and concerns and allowing myself to live completely in the present moment, the simple moment. In this way, I could truly savor the experience. It was not a way I could live forever because of my actual responsibilities and care at home, my situation with my family, my work teaching and directing at UT, and especially my two sanghas, AZC and Ordinary Mind, gave my life purpose and joy. But the experience of living simply, with minimal needs or desires, appreciating every moment, every person, stayed with me to this day. Living in a monastery is not, as many think, a withdrawal from others, a solitary quest for enlightenment. It is rather more intensely social and profoundly connected.
Peg, I'm a little confused, or I would be a little confused with these statements in italics as whose words those are. I don't know if others of you are a little confused by that or think that someone else might be.
Huh. I wonder.
Like, did you write that at another time? Was that from your journal?
No, these things that are set in like that are, I think, intended to be a sort of, I would say, insights or things that I learned. So it's
I'm just wondering with others if they're confused at all about who's saying this.
well,
Oh,
anything that's not from me is cited, so there would be a name there.
okay.
Yeah.
Who's reading? Is it
I think that was just
me?
so it's Donna, right?
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Living together.
Living together, meditating together, working together, and playing together deepens bonds of spiritual friendship, trust, and appreciation. Differences must be worked out. Power dynamics must be tempered and balanced out, and challenges must be addressed together. In a healthy monastic setting, we can experience a life that offers the connection, warmth, mutual support, and care that humans long for. It wraps around us. It wraps around us the robe of the Buddha's teaching, the formless field of benefaction.
At Great Vow, the young residents often sought me out for a talk, an informal practice discussion. I was not their teacher or other authority, so in some ways it was probably easier to confide in me. In this way, I did my best to encourage and support them in their aspirations without undermining their respect for Hogan and Chozen. I practiced listening. Generally, I would end up suggesting that they see one of their teachers with their concerns. But I think I could be a good spiritual friend in my role as a peer. And in turn, they often shared important insights and practical wisdom about monastic living, for which they had much more experience than I. And so, overall, I felt close to the resident monks. They had such sincerity and dedication to this way of living, and clearly looked up to Hogan and Chozen. But they also had their upsets, confusions, struggles, and pain, like anyone else.
Um, it's Kim. Meanwhile, our visitors driving out from Portland or coming in for sashins viewed them with a certain awe. I think anyone coming to a monastery expecting to find enlightened beings is like someone visiting a hospital expecting to find healthy people. Still, it was a joy to be with them and share their infectious enthusiasm, their devoted practice, their happiness in this shared endeavor. They were so young and already well on the path. And of course, we meditated side by side and worked side by side, folding towels, picking kale in the garden, washing dishes, cleaning bathrooms, sweeping the walks. We were sharing a life of vow. So I want to just say something that kind of connects. Yesterday, Ellen gave a talk about what supports your practice.
Mhm.
And then this morning after Zazen, Ellen kind of continued that discussion. And what was really impactful was how many people said that what supported their practice was the Sangha and the other people. And it was really nice to hear. And I didn't realize at the time how that kind of moved me, but then all day long I've been thinking about that and then seeing here about, when I hear words, see words like sharing a life, that it was the sharing that supports, so supportive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ed and Ann were there, and Melen was there yesterday.
Cool. So now it's Belen, I guess.
It's my turn.
Mhm.
I tend to be anxious and very impatient when I find myself in situations where there is poor leadership. Fortunately, I was relieved to discover that Hogan and Chosen were calmly and expertly in change of their roles, clear, kind, and purposeful. They worked harmoniously together and led by both instruction and example. I saw the power of such assured leadership and the riches of having both male and female leaders.
Their bond gave stability to the monastery and gave evidence that this way of living supported healthy relationships rather than denying them. And they could be a deep spiritual resource for each other. Even though I was a new priest, not even in their own lineage, still fumbling with my robes, they welcomed me warmly and folded me completely into this new life. My experience with them would later provide an important leadership model for fulfillment. I think it's
Sorry, yeah. Chosen and Hogan were also deeply connected to the local community. When they were in the process of acquiring the property, a local pastor became incensed and tried to stir up the whole community against the idea of a Buddhist monastery. It was a huge controversy in the little town. Hogan and Chosen hosted a town hall meeting to discuss any concerns of the community, and the pastor was in full cry. He stood up and demanded, "Can you tell me you won't be having homosexuals up there?" Hogan was very still, listening. He replied, "Well, I don't know about your church, Pastor, but we do not ask people who come here what their sexual preferences are."
The pastor stormed out, but much of his congregation stayed behind. And one by one they came up to Hogan and thanked him, speaking about their gay son or daughter, their sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, things they had never shared with anyone before.
Wow. So Hogan joined the Rotary Club. Chosen volunteered at a local clinic and invited the townspeople for monthly evenings of folk dancing. They contributed money for a skateboard park for local youth, and in these ways, they became cherished members of the community. Should I read the next one?
Sure.
Chosen was sometimes away for conferences. She is an internationally recognized researcher, expert, and pediatrician specializing in child abuse and training doctors to spot signs of it in their young patients. Hogan had worked many years as a psychologist in prisons with child abusers. He also had a background working in construction and his family business, so he was very skilled not only in taking care of the physical facilities, but training the residents as he did, repairing a roof, painting a door, landscape maintenance. Chosen said he was never happier than when he was on the tractor mowing the vast acres of lawn. Chosen and Hogan's calm, wise presence gave the monastery stability and well-being.
Wait.
That's right. What do you do out there? Further down.
Oh, yeah, further along.
Next page. Yeah, go down to the bottom.
Okay, we read that.
Yeah, and the next page after that. There's
What do you do all day? Yeah.
Okay.
that's you, Kim, I think.
What do you do all day? Maybe you had assumed the life in a monastery consists mostly of silent meditation all day long, with a little contemplative
Contemplative.
thank you, sweeping or pruning, is that right?
Yeah.
Roses in the garden, and meals of thin soup or gruel. But in truth, everybody works most of the day. Such a large space requires daily cleaning, vacuuming the endless corridors, dusting, doing laundry, cleaning bathrooms, the kitchens, offices, dorms, and workspaces. Residents need to eat, and that means shopping, meal prep, and cleanup. In the mornings, we worked in silence, except for the minimal necessary conversation about the work. After the lunch clapper, we were free to talk in the afternoon until the evening clapper brought us back to noble silence. Hogan told me he had been instructed to give me only menial work there. I laughed and said, I'm fine with that, but in my experience, the needs of the institution always trump the needs of the individual. It was not long before those words came true.
I had almost no contact from home. I didn't know that Flint and my Sangha friends, as well as my family, had been told to treat my time at the monastery as though I had died, and I was told to immerse myself in monastic training entirely. Suddenly, I was in another world, which was the dream, my familiar life in Austin, teaching on campus, with my two sanghas, with Flint, and with my family. Or was it sitting on a chilly hillside in the early morning sunrise, overlooking a verdant meadow dotted with black cows below?
But I was struggling with wrenching knee pain in Zazen. Changing positions, aspirin, massage, nothing helped. I was shocked. I had been sitting at home quite comfortably for 30 minutes and more for years. Here at Great Vow, while Zazen periods were 50 minutes long, there was a 5-minute wiggle bell interval in the middle. The pain was consuming my meditation, and I was more and more discouraged about it.
One Sunday afternoon, while the others had gone into town, I idly picked a little book out of the bookshelf in the residence lounge, Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. Well, I thought, we have Sangha members with back pain. Maybe this could help them. I was captivated as I read. John Sarno completely cured back pain for thousands of people with 3 lectures.
Go ahead.
I know I'm there.
Basically, He taught them that pain is a signal of resistance in the body. The source may be actual injury or sickness, but in all other cases, it results from psychological factors. Generally, he discovered it is caused by the body-mind system's unconscious suppression of unwanted thoughts and feelings. In turn, microcontractions deprive the muscle cells of oxygen, creating pain as a distraction. The pain is real, not a figment of the imagination, but the cause of it is psychological, not physiological.
If only I thought John Sarno had written a book about knee pain. But suppose this same process applies to other pain. I decided to investigate. In Sazon, I turned my attention to what the knee pain might be trying to distract me from. And there it was. I realized it was connected to my feelings of loss, of missing my Sangha, my home, my family in Flint. I had been avoiding those feelings in order to immerse myself fully in monastic life. But I carried such longing. At that moment, my knee pain utterly vanished, not gradually, instantly, never to return.
So, in any event, life in the monastery was physical and involved a full day's work, making zafus or jizo statues in the workshop, working in the organic garden, cleaning, working in the office. But we were not eating thin soup or gruel. The meals were fresh from the organic garden and delicious. Life in a monastic setting is a kind of hothouse for spiritual development, a rarefied space that is designed to bring body, heart, and mind into a coherent whole, and a life harmoniously coordinated with others who share this experience. It's interesting that you said something about these offsets, Kim. To me, especially this last one, it's like your leading character breaks contain and comes off frame and makes that kind of a statement. And then they go back into frame and you're back on the script. But I kind of like that, insert it like that.
It's like when they turn and talk to the audience directly in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
There's nothing special about the activities: sitting zazen, making food, cleaning bathrooms, gardening, talking, sleeping, and so on. There are routines and welcome breaks from routines. All of your habitual conditioning shows up: your worry, resentment, the desire for approval, comparing mind, competition, longing for permanence, and seeking comfort. That's exactly what this way of living is set up for. It makes our conditioning visible. There's nothing else going on, nothing to distract you, nothing to keep you busy, so that you can avoid feeling your despair, loneliness, irritation, and the whole range of impulses we generally hide from our own view. Gradually, they appear, are recognized, and subside. There's nothing to be done with them. When reactive mind starts falling away, I said to Hogan, the amount of energy freed up is breathtaking. For example,
I love the Suzuki quote on the page just before that.
real freedom is to not feel limited when wearing the Zen robe, this troublesome formal robe. Similarly, in our busy life, we should wear this civilization without being bothered by it, without ignoring it, without being caught by it. Yeah, that is nice.
Free energy. The Tenso was going to be traveling to Germany for 6 weeks. So I was appointed as an interim Tenso. I was delighted to be planning meals, taking the car into Longview to the wholesale grocery market, stocking the shelves of the huge walk-in freezer and walk-in refrigerator. Just as before, I love making great baths of yogurt, steaming tanks of soup, giant pots of oatmeal, and tofu stir-fries with veggies from the organic garden. But almost all of my love began in charge of the kitchen. I introduced migas and blueberry bait and tostadas to a fervent audience, and generally found that vast kitchen with its acres of stainless steel countertops, huge sinks, and enormous commercial stove an enchanting playground. Even better, diligent monks did all the cleanup in the dish room.
I had worked in the kitchen of Beloit College when my stepfather was the head of food service there, feeding 200 college students 3 freshly prepared meals a day. So feeding 18 monastery residents was a romp. Then one day, while I was slicing peaches in the kitchen, Chosen came to me looking grave. We're going to host a weekend on the anniversary of Maizumi Roshi's death. We invited his Dharma heirs here for the weekend. So in all, we'll be feeding 43 people, 3 meals plus afternoon tea. I was unperturbed. We'll have a big dinner Saturday night, she added. I was listening for any further information. We can just make a simple lasagna and a salad, she offered, a bit apologetically, but I had other ideas. Why don't we make a Southwestern themed dinner, I suggested. Tortilla soup, 2 kinds of enchiladas, Spanish rice, guacamole salad, and lemon cake with fresh berries. I had worked part-time catering large events while I was at the University of Iowa, and I had learned how to stage courses that would each be served all at once. So I didn't think this would be too difficult. I could see she was enchanted with the idea, but also a bit dubious. Of course, you'll have to give me every single resident for the kitchen, I said.
And amazingly enough, everything came off perfectly. I was a bit apprehensive, knowing some of the Dharma heirs had important centers of their own, and all of them had themselves served as tenzos during their own training. But there was really no point in panic when I had to focus. I was just too busy with planning, timing, kitchen choreography, training the wait staff, supervising the cooking, stirring the soup, and coordinating the whole effort. A quiet, harmonious system. Everyone was working together full tilt.
When dessert was served, the entertainment began. I whipped off my apron so that I could join the marimba orchestra. Chozan and Hogan gave brief talks, and Steve Stuckey played a guitar and sang a satirical blues song he'd written. Finally, I read 2 humor pieces I'd written, How the Buddha Left Home and Buddha in the Mist. You can read these linked to my contact page at appamada.org. That was such a satisfying experience. It wowed our guests and showed the monastery at its best. Free energy is creative, playful, confident, improvisational, and joyful.
Bleakness at dawn. But it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Here's a journal entry from March. I was dawn for the first time this morning. Naturally, everything went wrong. Somehow, my case got twisted, So everyone had to wait while I took it off completely and straightened it out. Then Hogan had to tell me to do the 3 bows the Doan does before the service can begin. Of course, I could not get my zagu down, and everyone waited while I did the 3 bows. Then I messed up the service naturally because by then I was completely out of sync. I had been working with Moo all morning and felt far away, dissociated from the scene. Ryushin helped me out, and then at the end, I just collapsed in shame after everyone left. He was very encouraging and consoled me.
Maybe we should get back with Ed. Get back on the,
Oh, I got out of order, right?
yeah.
Oh, I was out of order. I followed Donna instead of Malen. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's get.
It was a chance for me to accept life as it is and enjoy it. But really, I keep thinking, okay, everyone, you were so eager to have me stop thinking, and now I can't even function in the simplest ways. I have lost whoever I was, whatever I had been, which, if I recall, was a well-functioning, successful adult. And now I am adrift with no idea who I am or what is to become of me. I feel completely insane, melted down, and dangerously dysfunctional. I can't remember why this was supposed to be such a good idea. I can't see where this road leads except to complete incapacity. I don't know whether I will ever get put back together again, despite all the assurances of my teachers. One thing is certain, I am not performing the work I was trained to do. I am not achieving what I could be achieving if I had not taken this detour, fork in the road, whatever.
And what has it led to? I am folding laundry in a former grade school, washing dishes, cleaning toilets, and I'm reasonably sure this is not what the world can best benefit from. This is not what the world, given my education, experience, and skills. I think of Moo day and night, and even so, it is pitiful how intermittent my efforts are. I'm not even adept at this after 15 years of what I thought of as sincere practice. Compared to the monks of old, I am just a tourist. Compared to these young students who have come to the monastery with nothing, I am just a loafer. But this comparing mind is part of the problem, according to the teachings. So be it.
My aspiration is what? I don't even remember anymore. I feel as though I have been here 20 years, lost to life, wasted my talents, and for what? Who benefits from this? It isn't even a good vacation, given how much effort is involved. Sassen is a criminal waste of time for me right now, but I don't know what else to do. I'm actually pretty desolated about the whole enterprise. I feel beaten, but don't know what else to do but keep on with it. I doubt I can attain any enlightened being or develop this aspiration, whatever it might be. It certainly does not seem to be an aspiration to benefit all beings, given that I do nothing for anyone else and seek only to make myself comfortable.
My teachers keep wanting me to give things up, strip things away. I've now dropped all identifiers from my position directing the lab, my house, my son living far away, my Sangha, even my beloved teacher. I don't have any bearings or landmarks of self, seems to me. I'm not permitted to use my skills or talents to help out around here. I can't even keep up my exercise program going because the schedule is so irregular. I guess I could have my clothes taken, but there's not much else to give up. That seems melodramatic in a way because I have a car, a computer, a job, a house, a sangha. I just don't inhabit them at the moment. So who am I when all of these things are removed from the picture?
In the courtyard, purple flowers attract the bees. I gaze into the sky, moo, clear sky, moo with wisps of clouds, moo in the mist of morning. Nothing comes of this. What is wanting? Nothing at all. Yet everything is urgent. I don't know. I do not know.
Jizzo. There was a major project underway when I arrived at Great Vow. Shozan had been planning a pilgrimage to Japan with some Sangha members on the 60th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. She wanted to bring the Japanese people a gift, representations of Jizzo in numbers equal to the lives lost that day. Jizzo is a beloved figure in Japan. The Buddhist Bodhisattva of great vow and great activity, also the guardian of women, children, travelers, and those who are sick. It is said that Jizzo Bodhisattva goes into the hell realms to rescue people. Throughout Japan, you can find statues of Jizzo, and he is also commonly found in popular culture. Jizzo is also the patron of the monastery, from whom Great Vow gets its name and its mission.
Chosen had the idea to invite sanghas around the country to join in the project of creating images of Jizo on cloth panels. Together with the name and age of the maker and the number of Jizos on the panel, we hoped that we would receive enough images to match the number of lives lost, but the deadline was fast approaching. We needed more ways to spread the word and encourage participation. Even the residents were making panels in their spare time.
I wasn't supposed to be using my laptop, but I discovered that I could create images on the computer, print them on t-shirt transfer paper, and apply them to a panel. This technological innovation not only enabled me to work much faster, but also to include a lot more detail and many more Jizos per panel. So I was given permission to work this way. On the following pages, you'll see some of the images I made there. Across the country, Buddhist Sanghas were making Jizo panels and sending them to us. Even people in prison sent panels, along with moving letters about how much it meant to them to be able to contribute in this way. And still we were far from our goal. It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, we have to stop then. Stop and do a little bit of writing.
Okay.
Thank you. This is great. We started at like page 126, right?
Yeah, and now if I save, this worked the other day.
And you can see on the facing page some images that I made for the project.
Okay, 152. Okay. Stop share.
Okay, so we want to take that maybe 15 minutes or so for writing. What do you think? 15 minutes?
Yes, that's what we've been doing.
Okay. There we go. I had the wrong view on. All of you had tiny, tiny heads. I'm, I'm trying to remember that Saturday Night Live skit where it was like, I'm pushing your heads. Do you remember that? Does anybody remember that? Oh, it was so funny. Anyway, I'm not crushing your heads. So I just a little bit of a side note before we share a little bit. I'm proposing to take this project to the Liaison Teachers Association conference in March. And I want to share it with them, not only because I think it will interest them, but also because they should be thinking about a similar kinds of projects for their own sanghas, some collaborative history making, so that they have an account, a record of how their sangha has evolved and what they've learned together. So I suspect that they probably will accept that proposal. I don't think they get a lot of proposals, and it's a very welcoming conference. So it'd be fun to do it as a workshop where talk a little bit about our project and show our project, and then engage people in doing some brainstorming about what they might do in their own sanghas. So anyway, that's just a little bit of background of what.
I think it will be a challenge what you choose to read.
Oh, wow.
How much background and how much foreground.
Oh, well, I just want, basically what I would do is pick a chapter, like maybe chapter 11, and show spreads. That's what I show, the spreads, and then talk about the project and how we have thought about putting it together and what the images and the Sangha member reflections and things like that, so that we have multiple voices and we have multiple kind of images and text. So I hope that they would think that's something appealing for them to do for their own sanghas. Yeah, but also it's a little bit of early taste of the book. So when we actually get it in print and get it out there, we'll start building an audience early for that. Yeah. So anyway, that's I could wait until it's finished, but the problem is then it's like we're into next year. I'd like people to have a little sense of it's on the horizon anyway. So there'll be some interest. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What would you like to share?
Oh, I can share.
Great.
As I read this section, I'm feeling like I'm reading a journal from one engaged in an experience rather than one looking back. I'm also like how Peg is vulnerable, making mistakes as Doan to letting her emotions affect her needs. This chapter seems to make me believe I'm actually having the experiences myself, and also to see how wonderful it is to see leaders that are admired and a place that operates so well. I'd be curious at this point in the book to see how this experience feeds into Appamada. We've read 150 pages of background experience now. I wonder if I'd be impatient. They are good stories, but is that enough for the reader? On the other hand, starting the book with Appamada wouldn't make sense either. What would an editor say? Could this background to Appamada be shortened without losing its full effect? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's been my ongoing question. There's a for me, there's a kind of wholeness in the experience that makes it hard for me to imagine, although I'm sure an editor can imagine what could be taken out, so that's the challenge, I think. And you put your finger right on exactly on the challenge that's been from the start of this project has been the challenge. How much is of interest to the reader, and how much is could be extracted. So obviously, I do know that. I mean, I could make I could make all of this so far. That's the first chapter, but I'd have to take a lot out, and I don't know that it would be quite as immersive.
And you want to give us an experience, for example, a monastery experience, as best, I know it's not possible, but as far as it's possible.
Yeah, I think this is a long chapter, and it's a long experience when you're immersed in that kind of a world, and I wanted to convey the richness of it and also the unfolding quality of it. But I don't, my question is always what if anything is the reader interested in this? And my guess is that there are people. I'm not really searching for an audience outside of our Zen world, particularly. So I assume that people are, especially lay practitioners, are always wondering about what is that experience like? What would it be like to live in a Zen monastery, or what would it be like to go spend time in a Zen monastery? What would that really be like? That's how I thought it might be useful. Yeah, and you're right. We could start with, and in print, we could just start with the Appamada chapter, and then the book would be, just like that. And that's another possibility. The other possibility is to do like 3 volumes or something and put the Appamada part in the middle of it. So yeah, I don't know. Partly I want people to understand, especially people not from Appamada, how much depth there is in our Sangha, how much of a foundation it has. So because we are not non-conventional, non-traditional Sangha, I don't want people to think we're lightweights. So that's a part of it, is to help people understand there's a lot of thought and care that's gone into this and a lot of depth in it. So that's sort of my subtext, is like, I want our students to be respected. I want people to recognize that Appamada is a genuine, I think, deeply practiced Sangha. So, and that sometimes is the case you have to make if you're not going to follow the traditional model. People can look at the traditional model and say, "Oh, that looks like a Zen center to me," and we are doing something different. And so part of it is to give people an understanding of how much foundation it has under it. Yeah, that's a little bit of my thinking about that. Ed.
That's great that you said what you just said. I was touched and fully on board with the effort to give a vicarious experience of being in a monastery. And I think that's a great thing to do, because there's a lot of questions, mysteries, misunderstandings, non-understandings about that whole experience. And with that in mind, of having that vicarious monastery experience, I was completely presumptive. And what I wrote was as if I were Peg, or I was writing from Peg's thoughts of being in that experience. So this is Peg with a beard giving you her thoughts. So what I wrote was, what from me has come into this world to answer questions of who I am or who are you in what we have and haven't done. With even a modicum of insight, we can guarantee we have no foolproof plan. Beautiful though the many roads of second chances in service to compassion and gratitude, as every moment known is full.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's you.
No, that's you, Ed. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm, I'm so touched by it. Yeah.
This is what your story and you generated for this
Mm,
occasion. And thank you for that.
thank you. It's very touching. I think for me, I just wrote a little bit about how it's so poignant to read these accounts of life in the monastery, and I really felt as if I were back there again. It's a long chapter, but I don't know what to leave out. Maybe it's too much for readers. It's so hard for me to say. So much of my experience was of a whole. It's impossible right now to see how to tear it apart. Possibly it will interest readers too. I feel spent reading it, almost as though reliving it in a compressed, sped up way. I'm kind of amazed at how much detail I've recalled and how much more isn't even included. And I'm still so grateful for the generosity of these readers. My gosh, we're already almost up to chapter 8, and I'm still working on chapter 12. But I may only have chapter 13, our structure, and 14 tributaries until the conclusion. How much can I get done by March? And the reason that's important to me is I'm not going to read the whole thing at the conference, of course, but I am going to point people to the project's website. And that will drive some people to it. And I want to have as much up there as I can have up there at that point. But March is not very far away. We'll see. Yeah. Any other general thoughts or suggestions?
I really enjoyed I think it was one of the last pieces we read where you interspersed the moo
Oh,
that. I mean,
mm,
that gave a real feeling for what you had described before that you're dissolving, yourself is breaking up. You really had, I, for me, that gave a real feeling of that.
mm, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking that out, something would really be missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that conveys something that nothing else that's written yet does.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are things that are to me that are quirky that I think like you put a recipe for blueberry boy bait in there, you know. And at the same time, it's like it's part of the fabric of that whole experience. So I don't know, I'm entirely too close to it and immersed in it to be able to say, take this out, leave this part out, cut here. Yeah, hard to say. But it's I thought it was going to end up being way more longer than it's going to be now. Because all of this is preparation, but in the part where we talk about Appamada and Appamada's structure is all prepared for. So it's not going to require a lot of philosophical explanation or anything because it'll have all this under it. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it'll be clear where it came from. That doesn't have to have a whole lot of background. So this chapter I'll be working on next is the one that's just basically what are the innovative structures that are part of the social architecture of Appamada that create the container for the relationships and practices. So, and then the last chapter will be tributaries, which is really those little capsule summaries of the things we've incorporated, like Hakomi and IFS and spiral dynamics and right use of power and that kind of thing. So we're really close. Yeah. I'm looking forward to what you think about the upcoming chapters too. And then, the chapter after this Great Vow chapter, Flint will be talking about his experience. And that's also really, really good. So, yeah. Yeah, I think I feel good about where we are in the project. I'm satisfied that if someone came along who knew exactly how to edit it perfectly for some kind of audience or other, that would be great. Yeah. I did run the chapter I'm working on now through GPT, and that was an experience. I was trying to figure out what does Chat GPT know about, how to handle a text. It was very interesting. It did a lot of editing, and what I got back was very, very functional, very attractive, and like a hotel room, completely devoid of personality. So then I'm like, oh, this is not going to be that useful. So then I said to it, I thought maybe it's correctable. So I said, like, this is like a hotel room. It's very clean. It's very attractive, but it's completely without personality. And furthermore, my readers really liked the metaphor of the river, which you took out entirely. So it says, okay, let me have another shot at. So it comes up with this in next draft, and in the next draft, every single sentence has the word flowing in it. Thanks, ChatGPT. You're really not going to be on this project. It was just making me laugh. It was like, oh yeah, I see. Maybe if you were doing a driver's license manual, that would be a good thing to use ChatGPT for. Yeah, something that's simple.
But
Yeah.
is this something you could train us? If you could train another human being to do this, why is it a matter of just that AI is not as developed as it's going to be? Do you think at some point in the future it could be that much better?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a large language model. So what it does is it gets input from billions of sources, 95% of which are poorly written. So now you have this thing weighted toward a certain, and furthermore, just stuff that's on the internet. And yes, it's got a lot of input from literature, but that's a tiny fraction of what there is out on the internet, right? Great literature. So it doesn't have a sensibility. It doesn't have a certain kind of sensibility. It doesn't it's very complimentary. It's lovely to put something in ChatGPT because this is really profound and moving. You move together the darn, your personal account and you're like, oh, gee, thanks. But it's kind of, then from there, things kind of fall apart, and its suggestions are not that useful. So anyway,
It's like life.
yeah, just life, exactly. We're at the end of our time. Thank you, everybody. I hope to see you again soon, next week, and we'll mush on. Although I am going to have to write faster, I can see that.
See you next time.
Take care. Bye bye. Thank you for your help. It's so helpful.